We're back, ladies and gentlemen, on the overtime segment of Illegal Formation, attorney to the stars, Anthony Rickman, our criminal defense expert. Anthony, we touched base on the DUI changes that came effective in October, but I think there's a sleeper here that you've seen already in your practice that I wanted to get out to the world of social media on our new trespassing laws, specifically at Vince. Talk to me for a second of what happened with this new law of May of 2025.
So let's draw an analogy, right? He's over at the Dolphins game, and they're getting slammed like they usually do, right? Destroyed. And he starts breaking stuff. And I say, get out.
Right.
He's like, no, I got a ticket. I paid to watch this horrible team.
Right.
Okay?
I'm a season ticket.
Leave. And he doesn't leave. And he gets trespassed from the stadium.
Old school?
Old school. Hey, cool. Don't come back. Here's your trespass notice.
Cancel tickets. The whole okay.
I don't want to leave. Boom, I'm going to arrest you now. Traditionally, prior to October, that was a misdemeanor. Slap on the wrist, diversion if they even prosecute. Now, our Florida legislature has said, if you fail to leave, if you're in a place that holds more than 5,000 people, a stadium, an arena, a concert, a nightclub, a sporting event, a political event, right?
Wow, okay.
And you are trespassed, it is a third-degree felony, punishable by up to 5 years in the Florida State Prison.
For not leaving.
Wow. And even if you have a ticket, right? If you're there and you leave.
Paying customer.
And look, I understand where the legislature's heart is at. Again, we got the legislature trying to do potentially the right thing.
Right.
Preventing people from coming into stadiums without tickets. Preventing people from storming the field and streaking across the Super Bowl. I get where their head is at.
Deterrence.
Yes. But when you look at the law as it's written and how it's being applied in circumstances, because when we talk about what they made it for, so it was limited circumstances that very rarely happen.
Yeah.
But now, in the last month since this law has been in effect, I've gotten multiple clients who've been kicked out of Lightning games who are now charged with felonies.
Jeez.
Kicked out of a Bucks game, charged with a felony, facing the possibility of losing the right to carry a firearm, being a convicted felon, going on probation for up to 5 years, or going to prison.
What's that do for the old job employment? What's that do for the resume?
Everything.
Ever been convicted of a felony? Check.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or not just that, arrested for a felony, because you can't unring the bell.
True.
Let's say hypothetically somebody had like a DWLS, driving suspended license, they're adjudicated of that. And then they get arrested for a nonsense trespass and charged with a felony. Right. I can't seal that guy's record. It's always going to be there.
In the good old days of, hey, no trespass after warning, where at least they gave you, hey, look, if you come back again, now you've given your warning, you've given your one-time free get out of jail pass. What concerns me here, G, is how far this goes. Meaning, let's say, using the analogy, we're at the Finns game. Let's say a place where they serve plenty of alcohol. Maybe somebody's made it just an absolute bad decision that day. The alcohol got on their way. They tell a security guard, I'm not leaving. I'm not real sure now if the means are going to justify the ends here.
Yeah, that's exactly where my mind jumped to. I get it. It all happened because of the soccer game, Brazil, Colombia. Everyone stormed the gates. Everyone's trying to get in. So like you said, one thing happens and then try to make this big, broad law apply to everybody. But then I start thinking what you guys were saying. Well, okay, what if the cop tries to kick me out because I'm wearing like a Boston hat or I'm wearing a Miami hat or whatever it is. And all of a sudden I get wrapped up in this and I'm charged with a felony. And it seems like they're just putting too much power in the hands of the authorities here. And the punishment is just doesn't match the crime just for being somewhere, you know.
Yeah, from a public policy standpoint, I think about deterrent again from the state attorney's office. But where I'm a little confused here, Anthony, is like we already had laws on the books.
And those laws are fine.
Right.
Let's see you at the casino, right? And you're on a heater. And the pit boss is trying to get you out, right? And he says, hey, leave. There's 5,000 people at the casino at any given time.
Oh, 100%.
Are we going to have now every trespass at the casino turned into a felony? Because there's an assembly?
And as a criminal defense attorney, as a former prosecutor, all three of us being former prosecutors, Garrett out of Miami-Dade, you and I out of Hillsborough County, what evidence are we going to be presenting about the refusal to leave? Someone says, no, I was going to leave. But to try to convince a jury, if there isn't a video or photographic, how tough that's going to be on a he said, she said, then as a criminal defense attorney, what are you going to do? Well, put your client on the stand and let them testify and get smoked by a criminal defense attorney? These are going to be tough cases to defend against.
Hard case, especially when you have somebody under the law who has authority to tell you to leave. What does that mean? Right. Who's the authority? And if somebody with authority other than law enforcement, that person's not wearing a body cam. So to your point, I mean, what is the
where's the threshold of refusal?
Where's the threshold?
Yeah, this isn't. I'm refusing to take a breathalyzer. G.
Yeah, and even if you can beat the rap, you can't beat the ride. I mean, if you get arrested for a misdemeanor, that's one thing, but arrested for a felony, like Anthony said, that's a totally different question sometimes when they ask you things and applying for different jobs and loans and things like that. That question comes up, and just to have that arise just from being at an event is
I just think
disproportionate.
When we try to make policy in the state too, I think we got to go back and look at a little bit of the proportion, meaning is it overly harsh compared to disproportionate penalty? Meaning, if I tell a security guard, nothing wrong with security, law enforcement, whoever, I'm not leaving, that triggers a felony, that triggers facing 5 years in prison. At that point, we have to stop ourselves and say, hold on, billion-dollar empire of sports, entertainment, etc. Some poor guy that says, hey, I'm not leaving because he's not maybe thinking correctly because he might be inebriated, not behind a car, not endangering anybody, not any criminal mischief, but literally just being asked to leave. Now I'm getting a little nervous here that with the great majority of the public doesn't understand this. Now we're talking about 5 years in prison. Now, I'm not saying he's going to get 5 years, but what you just riddled off was a host of problems that come with felonies as compared to what was already on the books with misdemeanors.
Well, we also talk about the other thing, the consumer rights, right? The right of the person who purchased a ticket, who has the limited license to that seat for purpose of the event. To what level are you going to kick them out? If you got people in the stands and I'm at a Yankee game and they're playing the Rays and I'm going crazy for my Yankees, and a homer over here is upset because I'm talking too loud or yelling too loud.
Let's say you're at Doak, Miami versus Florida State at Doak, man.
I'm rooting too loud and someone gets me kicked out because they don't like how loud I'm talking at the stadium. And that security guard tries to strip me of the right, my hard-earned money that I paid for this ticket because the person next to me doesn't like the fact that I'm cheering too loud for Aaron Judge. Right. Okay? And then some security guard kicks me out of the stadium and I say, no, it's not fair. I'm not leaving. Tells the officer, I want him trespassed, don't arrest it. I'm now facing a being convicted felon because I may upset the people he sent around me.
Gee, when we look at deterrence, think about this for an instant. Public safety versus deterrence. But how are we guaranteeing public safety if they don't know? This isn't like a law that anybody would even consider being on the books. Nobody is going to know that they could get hit with a 5-year sentence walking into a stadium. This is not like, hey, criminal mischief or petty theft. Yeah, when you're a kid, you can't steal a Snicker bar. Everybody knows the difference. What I'm a little bit concerned here, man, is...
Yeah, the first people that get accused of it are going to have some problems in the word of mouth, and everyone's just going to have to buy bigger TVs and just watch this stuff at home because it's just not worth it to risk your livelihood just going to a game.
Yeah, and we're relying on, there's discretion of prosecutors. We're all former prosecutors, right? We're relying on the fact that a prosecutor will look at this and do what's right. But sometimes prosecutors don't do that. Sometimes their offices, they have their marching orders. You have to prosecute to the fullest extent.
100%.
And in the four corners of the law, if they commit this crime, and let's say somebody had already done a diversion program in their past, and they're not eligible for diversion. Yeah. Let's say they already had a withhold of adjudication on a felony, meaning they weren't formally convicted, and they're not eligible for an withhold on this case. We're now going to have to rely on these prosecutors.
We're kidding ourselves if you think we're going to rely on prosecutorial or judicial discretion to get this thing right. It only, since the history of time, has worked the other way, which is the state gets the cards stacked in their favor to apply as much pressure to reach a plea so the case never sees the daylight. If I was going to Anthony Rickman, and I got arrested on this charge, I'd be telling Anthony under no circumstances am I going to prison. That is rule number one. Number two, even if Anthony thinks he can beat it, if that prosecutor is telling Anthony that if you lose, I'm seeking prison time, I'm out, bro. There's no way.
And I think it's a case-by-case basis, too. If you got a guy who's acting like a complete schmuck and jumping on the field, that's different than a guy who has the kids at a stadium. And like I told you, example of a guy was kicked out of the stadium because he was being too loud. And at the end of the day, we don't believe in jury nullifications. We don't do it. But is a jury really going to convict somebody for this type of crime? The problem is jurors don't know what you're facing. They don't know.
They have no idea what's behind door number two. And they have no idea what the sentencing is. They have no idea the ramifications. All the state has to prove is you were here, you were asked to leave, had 5,000 in attendance, and you get popped. And the jury walks away and they don't know what's coming next. I'm all for what Garrett said is, hey, it came from the public policy of this gate crashing theory, the hoodlums that shouldn't have been there, the Taylor Swift crazy concerts where stadiums are collapsing. I get that, but golly, there seems like there's got to be a different law to be able to regulate that, as opposed to what I think happens a lot of times when we enlarge these laws, that sometimes the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater, man.
Yeah, they could have narrowly tailored this law to make it an affray or a riot type situation, but they chose to open the floodgates. And this is the problem we have.
Luke, that's overtime with a legal formation with Anthony Rickman, one of the finest in Florida criminal defense. Anthony, we appreciate you, man, for sharing that wisdom, breaking this down. Gee, I think this is a law that nobody knows about, and people need to get informed here, bud.
No question. Keep watching the legal formation overtime.
Boom. When the cousins, that's why we're at home. So we do our, our beer, our little wings. We're watching football at the Izzy. Let's go.